live 45 minutes later. Technology. I should start doing some meditation before getting, it says we're live, before going on, to just send some good energy to the, all right, so it says we're live. I've got a delay, so we probably are. Doesn't look like any, oh, it says we're live on my channel now.
Yes.
Sweet. Okay, let's see. Do I have it open in two places? Oh, there it is. Delay. Woohoo. Okay, wait. What did I just hit? Okay, let me pause that. So last time I paused it and I was still able to see comments. So let's see if that works this time. Are you seeing it?
I can see it now.
Yay. Is there a huge delay or just a medium delay?
That I can't tell.
Okay. Well, let's just roll with it and see what happens. So I'm going to close this out. Pause this. Okay. So I think we're good to go. Let's start over. Oh, now I'm talking and I've got an echo. Do you hear that?
No.
All right, so I'll close that out. What the heck? I've got something in the background, literally, of a total repeat, and I don't even see anything open.
There has to be something open.
This might just not be, let me hit.
You work on your sound issues and then
we'll. You keep talking and I'm going to see if I can figure out my sound. I don't even know where this is coming from. This is crazy.
You did such a beautiful intro on our video that didn't work. So we're going to be going into our extra flow today. Flowing. You got it?
Yeah. Woo-hoo.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going though.
That feels better.
So basically we're going into our synchronicities, and to make it short, since it's now been a 15-minute delay, right? Kandice and I flow back and forth all the time. We use all of our environment to pay attention to what's synchronistically happening in our lives. Welcome, by the way, if you guys are watching, whenever you're watching this, if anybody's watching. Essentially, if and when. Kandice and I operate on synchronicities all the time, and that's basically how we function. So with this particular play time today, we're going to go into some of the synchronicities that we've experienced over the week, and we're going to merge and go into a space of just synchronistic play so that we can not only share what we've seen, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing in synchronistic fashion, but what that looks like to us, what that feels like to us. And I think we're going to go into a flow with that as well, because there's more. There's always more to uncover. And this is just how we get our messages, because the message that keeps coming up for me over and over again is pay attention to everything in your environment and use it all, because it all comes from and we talked about the branch, right? The branches, it branches out from that original source, and that source flows through all things. And so depending on what we're experiencing as a collective or individually, okay, good, I got the goosebumps going again. As we experience that, we can utilize all of the things that's showing up for us in our reality as a tool, as a guidance system, as a ping, if you will, to share with us and to show us where we are in our mapping system, which rolls me all back into the gene keys you wanted to express, because the gene keys are a tool that Kandice uses for her mapping system that's tied in with the I Ching, right? And mapping, I Ching. And it's tied in with a great tool to be utilized to share with us what's going on internally and externally as well. And then I'll roll that back into my own synchronicities, which are a little Wild Wild West style.
Right. So it also links in with astrology, which is an ancient mapping system that people like to use. So you can literally, they've sort of overlaid the keys around the entire circle of our progression as we're moving through time and space.
Right.
Um,
Oh, that's funny.
The equinox, or we're definitely in the equinox energy right now. We just had a couple
yeah.
ago, we're moving into the equinox. So we just moved out of Pisces into Aries. And so we've just moved from a very
I'm sharing this as you do that, but go for it.
Okay. That lines up with this gene key that we've moved into. As we've moved into the first degrees of that experience with Aries, we're in the 25th gene key, which is the myth of the sacred wound. And it's moving from the shadow of constriction into the gift of acceptance, into the acidic frequency of universal love. And as you were talking about, we get in a flow state and we flow and we receive messages. If we're constricted, then we're not in that same flow. We're not receiving those same messages. And it doesn't mean that we're cut off.
Yeah.
We're just locked. There's a clamp in the hose somewhere. And that's a way for us to stop and go, where's that constriction, so that we can flow freely again and receive the messages of that mapping system. That's our compass, that's our guide, that's our barometer in life. And I also noticed how you're like, ooh, goosebumps. Okay, I'm on the right trail. Like we use our whole body to tell us what's going on. And we use all of the clues and cues in our internal and external environment as we're pinging off. And it makes me feel like we're using some sort of a sonar. We're using some sort of a extrasensory sonar to receive feedback from our experiences, and then as we say words, they will kind of reflect back to us and ricochet in our body, goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
So after we're saying those sounds outwardly, we're also getting our own tonality back to us, which then sets off something in our body. We'll get chills, or we'll get really hot.
Yep.
And that's literally knowing thyself so well that you're that own detector of quality.
Yeah, I'm hearing spectrometer.
Yeah.
So, and when I say I'm hearing, because I always do, what I part of what I think is so important for us right now is to share with each other how we do this, because it's not like it's magic. It's magical and fun, and it is magic in the sense of what that word really means. But essentially, it's using the everyday things and pulling them into this magical stream. I've got goosebumps again. So it's like using, and we always talk about magic is in the mundane and magic is in everything. And so sometimes I just want to go backwards for a moment and say, this week, not every moment that I had was magical feeling or synchronistic. Or let me rephrase that and say, from my perspective of where I was currently standing, currently feeling, whether I was able or not to, feel the currents was based on my perspective. So
always receiving. Yeah. And even when it doesn't feel so good, there's still always a gift in that. And that's the magic of the reality. And as you're saying magic, I was feeling and hearing magi, like that shone through that word. And I looked it up, and it's the wise men from the East who brought gifts.
Yeah. Which East is the space of enlightenment from one perspective, right? And where the sun rises which I think is key because guess what I wrote earlier? We didn't, but I was writing about these bandwidths and
Right.
I'm
Young
seeing the
rising,
east,
where the sun is
illumination and
shining.
clarity.
And that is where the sun is in. I wonder if I can do this. Okay. Can you see this chart?
Yeah,
So
yes.
that's the sun, and that's in the 25, the universal love. So that's kind of what's highlighting that.
Let me just hit play and see if I'm okay. So,
So going from constriction to acceptance, going from constriction, right? We're in a funk, but then we're opening up to and we're accepting our condition, whatever it is.
yeah,
And now, even just that level of acceptance opens the flow up to show us the gifts the Magi are bringing, right? The Magi is the wisdom of, like, the wisdom is like the gift as well. Like, it just opens up our capacity to be wise and see what we're working with and see what we have and see the openings.
yeah. And when you're talking about even just the word wisdom, I always think the wise dome. Like this is our kingdom, right? Our crown, our center of putting things together. But we're not just here, right? We're using the inner wisdom that comes from the heart, that comes from all of our senses, that we then channel through the heart in order to interpret the feedback that you were talking about that's coming from our environment, which is truly a reflection of what's going on inside too. So,
And as you're saying, as I was hearing you say wisdom, I was feeling wizardry. And so I looked that word up, and it's someone who has magical powers, right? They appear to have magical powers. And then also a wizard is a help feature of a software package that automates complex tasks by asking the user a series of easy to answer questions. So
ooh,
we do that within our own system, right? We have that wizard. It's like, wizard, thought wizard. And then, we ask ourselves, we let the energy kind of marinate within us. And
uh,
then we hear answers. We hear code, like, right? Like,
ping, ping,
it's
ping,
within
ping.
the wizard system.
And I think it's important too to talk briefly about just to mention. So a couple things when you said that, I love that. That was an awesome, synchronistic connection point or node to help us to access more information about how it is that we're accessing the information and what it looks like energetically, because we do receive it through codes in our words, in our
Sorry. As soon as you said that, we do receive it. I literally I heard it through the grapevine, but like in
yeah,
a song.
yeah,
It literally comes through that grapevine. And we're on this whole branches flow, right?
yeah,
Branching from the center. So
yeah,
it's really, we're in that axis,
yeah,
accessing, hearing it through this grapevine,
yeah.
telecommunication center. And it is a game of telephone. And sometimes it is, sometimes there are messages that you could say are kind of like confounded, confused,
Mm-hmm.
compressed. It's like it comes in like a zip file, and we're like having to open it up in our system. And then we're
Mm-hmm.
like, we
Oof.
take condensation, right? As we're getting the sensations, this condensation, this water, this dewdrop from the enormous atmospheric pressure.
Okay, so I have to laugh really. So I'm going to write down the word condensation, and this is a perfect example. I just went into such flow about that because if I write down condensation, I hear condescending. So we could take it this way, we could take it that way. And I hear condensing the sensation. So
Mhm.
you said zip file, and I'm seeing that zip file being condensed with all of this information. Some of it's malware, some of it's higher information, and we have to pull it all apart and categorize it essentially and feel into what is resonant for us and what is stuff we can let go of and we can unpack and do it from that 0 point of stability. And that's the challenge, I think, for a lot of us. But I just went into like 5 different realms there that we could go, because if I write the condensation, I also come back to constriction. And what
Mhm.
I wrote was which was conjugation.
Ooh.
Which I want to go to the constriction first, because then we can go wild, wild west with the whole weird flow that I was on about conjugation. But I'm seeing as you're talking where it fits in. So, and that condensation also is taking, it's allowing stuff. What does it look like? It comes to the surface, right? When you have condensation on a glass, it's what was inside of the glass is bubbling out past the membrane that it was held within. It's like you put a glass of water inside a glass and it's in the water, yet at the same time, all of the moisture comes out around the glass. And it's like, I don't know, I just feel like that's just pinging off my awareness.
I've been in a mad flow about beads and
Okay.
beading and beads on a string, and then also the beads of water, and then the spider web being the string and the beads of water,
I
and then
do.
also rows and lays of flowers. Holy moly. Okay, so the challenge. So we're in the challenge right now. And I'm also now, as soon as I said that, I was hearing chalice. We're in the chalice right now. So we're in the chalice
Ooh.
challenge right now. And the challenge
Keep talking.
is unifying it all through the central column, unifying it all through the center of communication, of communion, as you're making sense
Yeah.
of sensationalism, which is all, sensing all ism.
Yeah.
And the challenge, so as you said challenge, I was hearing the channels and the canals of the branches, because you're always like, so whenever Carrie's like, oh, that takes me into 10 places, you're accessing literally 10 streams that roll into one stream, and you're
Right.
presented with 10 options. And that's the challenge, is like, what do I pick? Which channel do you pick to go into? Because I have access now. Okay, I've picked a topic. Okay, now I have access to 100 channels.
Yeah. And when you said column, I also think two things. It's like when you put something into a column to organize it, but then
Colander.
think about a column and what it holds. It holds all of the things you're organizing it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the spin, which takes it back into the chalice, right?
So,
Um,
oh my
hello,
goodness.
Patricia. um, so it's like this column binding, which we could take into, and so that word has been associated with some negative things. It could take you into that spin. So then when I get into that space of where that just took me, I send that energy into, I ask to be neutral, to neutralize that frequency. When I'm aware that it pulled me into a particular realm, that it's not necessarily where I wanted to go, but I'm certainly not adverse to exploring that to see where else that can pull me into. And the reason is because sometimes it's kind of like the movie Contact. And I've talked about this so much with Jodie Foster. And there's a scene where there is a movie that they're watching, and it's basically, I can't remember because it's been so long since I watched the movie, but they're watching, and it's basically the show that is sent back to them is a movie of like basically a person who is, I think it might have been like Hitler or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then,
We saw this from you guys. We received this
yeah,
signal with you, and you're
yeah,
like, that's a misrepresentation of our human race. That's,
exactly. So that
yeah,
was a misrepresentation, but then also we could have interpreted it as they wanted to start war. But in
that's right.
actuality, when
And
you
we're
go
like,
deeper, oh, I've got goosebumps again.
no,
So
that's
when you
not
go deeper and you read in between the lines, they merely used that as a tool to communicate,
the
to
gate.
show us how you can take it from this, but then it takes you into a completely different realm. It doesn't have to be taken as a negative. Oh my gosh, and this takes me to conjugation. So
So
are
hold
we
on.
ready to go there? Yeah, to go into your gene key.
I just want to mention that I looked up Columbine because I was guided to,
Yeah,
and a type of spruce.
yeah.
Well, I can't even say that, but the spruce blooms are said to resemble jester's caps. Jester's caps.
I wrote
and
about this a while ago, and now I can go back and make sense of what it was. So keep going.
their effectiveness at attracting hummingbirds. Okay. So gestures caps, the court jester, the joker,
Yep.
right? The clown chakra, the
Yep.
joke. So when we do view, and now I'm seeing it as the tree, okay? The tree of life. As we connect to the tree of life, we're connecting to the roots down, we're connecting to the canopy above. So there is always a mirror or a shadow image. The sun projects the shadow on the shape. So whenever we're accessing one, it's like on one side, you can see the swastika, which was taken from the ancients who mapped out the stars, and that's actually the windmill pattern that the Big Dipper displays in the sky, and it's the moving energy of a cyclone or water or the spiral captured in the framework. It means the ever regeneration, the turbine of abundance of life forever flowing.
I just want to give a quick drop on that, because if you guys are interested, whoever watches this in the future, look up, is it Gene 108 Mathematics? He is so JAIN 108 Mathematics on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. He has some really fun information on the mathematical composition of some of these symbols. And of course, anything that Dan Winter shares, he's probably got a million pieces of information on it as well. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. So you were talking about the different symbols and the energy, but let's go deeper into that Columbine, if you don't mind.
Columbine flower.
Or wait a minute, maybe you could take that back to your universal love and talk about the gene key, and then I'll share with you what the synchronicity was on the Columbine, because I wrote like so many pages on this Columbine and this colander and this movement and the column going up. And you were talking about the central channel of the tree and how it's connected to, just because you've got a branch over here, I'm going to use the word rotten. You got a branch over here that's rotten. It doesn't necessarily mean the whole tree is going to fall apart.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I misunderstood I believe that there's a columbine flower, and it grows off of certain types of spruce trees. That's what I got from that. But it's a type of flower, and it's the Latin word aquila. Aquila.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Aquila. That's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we're gonna be in there, but that takes us out into the cosmos. That takes us out into, star family. Okay.
Yeah.
So the eagle, and is so named because the flowers resemble the bird's claw. And then the common name of columbine is after the Latin word for dove. Right, which brings us to bestowed on the plant because the inverted flower was thought to resemble 5 birds clustered together.
Okay. Oh my goodness. So we just took this into a completely different realm or node. But what's funny is, so what you just shared, I had looked up and written about who knows how long ago, because we have no concept of time. Half the time you and I talk and we're like, we both wrote about that when you wrote about it a year ago. I wrote it about, so I have pages that I've written around this particular topic, and you're talking about the 5 and you're talking about that flower. And I kept writing like aquila. I was like, I don't know what that means, but I want to tie that in with aqua. You had brought up earlier, I don't know if it was in this video or the previous one that we kind of started, the end of Pisces. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because aqua takes me back into Pisces. Now, because that's obviously aquamarine is the stone for Pisces. But I also see this as synchronistic because of the 5. The dove is obviously peace and a representation of air, which we're moving into Aries, and fire. And then also I see that as a representation. I had written down, remember when we were on the spin with the sand dollar?
Yeah.
And the sand dollar has the doves that are inside of it. I mean, they have this whole story behind the sand dollar. And essentially, I see this as tying this all in together into this subject that maybe before it gives us more clarity on some of the messages we were receiving, I don't know, a year ago. So the sand dollar, it's the teeth actually of the, that actually when you find it, they call them the doves, and there's usually 5, I think, that are found inside the sand dollar. And I say sand dollar and I hear time and value. So that takes us into another spin. But before we go into that spin entirely, because we could just do the whole video on our synchronicities and where it goes to.
Yeah.
I know you've had some, yeah, we're just flowing. And this isn't random, you guys. It seems like it. And then later on, we're like, oh, wait a minute. So back to the universal tree of love, maybe. Do you want to go back to that so I don't go too off on too crazy of a tangent?
Well, okay. So bringing up the dove brings me into Gene Key 6, which we were just experiencing as a collective as we were moving out of the last key of Pisces.
Oh,
it's literally the challenge of it's you know, all of these keys are forever implicated in our realities, and the key is really associated with a degree. It's a zodiac degree. It's literally a segment of space, or that's angled to our exact positioning on the planet. And it's a, you know, it's a wheel, and it's a position in the wheel, but that position will always be relevant and active to some degree or another.
Oh, that's funny.
We were really experiencing this need for diplomacy, and we still are. It's the challenge of the shadow challenge of conflict, and its ability to move up into diplomacy,
which is the key. The like you said, the, sorry, I just went poof.
That's okay. And into peace. And the sun was shining on the 36 key, in becoming human, in moving from turbulence to up into humanity, up into compassion. So those, you know, it's nice to know like where you were and where you in relation to where you are now, and how that energy is all playing together. Because you know, I feel like it's not just like, okay, we've moved into this, now all of that's gone. No, we're still in the residue. We're still in the, you know, in the overlap. Like I see everything as the overlap of like concentric circles or spheres of energy, which are, when I say concentric circles, I mean concentric fields, which I feel like you've always seen as the bubbles, Carrie. It's like everything bubbles. Like you can think of in the water, I don't know if it's like frog eggs or whatever, but it's like all of these different bubbles. That could take you into the flow of gestation, right? Gestation and life forming and gestating, which makes me also hang
back to the jester. Yeah.
Gestation, just joking, just joshing. And then as I go into joshing, I would be like, okay, Joshua tree. Like
I just went there too. Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
It's all coming and bringing it back together, and it's weaving. We're weaving together these patterns to help us recognize what those patterns are telling us right now. That doesn't mean they're going to have the same messages for us in a year.
No, but it's like we live in an echo. We live in an echolocation of echoes and echoes and echoes. We live in echoes of ideas, of feelings. We're in this constant barrage chamber of, and this brings me back to the video that you saw of them going, is this you still? They're showing us an echo of a time of Hitler from that movie, and they're going, is this you? Because these echoes that we're echoing out into space, you know, we think no one's listening. We're literally just sharing everything, like that movie. It's like a Dr. Seuss movie where the elephant's in the flower. the city is in the flower, sorry. And the elephant finds the flower, and he can hear that there's people in there. And they're like, we're here, we're here, we're here. I don't know if you know that
I
one.
don't know, but I was thinking of The Fly, the movie The Fly. Sorry.
Okay. So anyway, I always think like we're like that. We're like this little globe and we're making so much noise. You know, we're
Mhm.
making so much noise and it doesn't just go outward to be received. It is, you know, bouncing around everything within our field.
And the louder the noise, the farther it travels from one perspective. Or you could look at it as the stronger the sound.
The more impact it has,
Right.
you know,
It's,
we're constantly being impacted.
yeah. So I was going to show, I ran out of room on my little board because I don't want to delete this. But like, let's say we're here and we've got all of these bubbles. And I'm like just looking at these, right? So here, wait, here we are, the little blue bubble. And it's like, here's this, like the elephant that you're talking about all the way over here going, what am I hearing? What is that? What am I feeling? And that's what it looks like when we go into the field and we're doing like when we're, it's like, it's not really that far away, but it is that far away. But it isn't because it's all connected. I mean, we could go into so many different places. So the importance is to draw this back in and think about what you were saying is we're moving out of 6, um, which kind of feels a little strange to me because I don't know the gene keys and I'm really not into astrology very much. I love listening to it, but I think of that as, well, wouldn't that be strange? Because for me, a dove represents peace, but
I
it
have a
also,
picture.
okay, thank you. And then I see that moving into this, you said 23, is it universal love?
25, yeah,
25.
universal. Hopefully this shows up okay.
Ooh,
Tell me,
pretty.
can you see the number?
No, it's too small. But what is it?
Okay, so I'll just say the
Or
number.
maybe somebody else can see it. I just can't because my screen is
Here's
too
my
small.
finger, okay? This is us
Hmm.
in the center.
People can
And
screenshot this and zoom in later if they want to.
so when we do the collective reading,
Mhm.
it's literally the cross. We're reading the energies that are coming from each side of the cross.
Oh,
For
cool.
so we were just reading the energy of the 36, which if you go across, it's the 6 on the other side. Okay,
Uh,
so that's how that energy is coming in. So the sun's over here. So that's where the energy of the 25 is coming from. And
oh,
then on the other
okay.
side, it's the earth energy that's receiving it. So
Mhm.
whatever's on the backside of the earth is receiving it. And then we have, we get the other measurements from what we call the unconscious earth and the unconscious sun. And that's a measurement that you get from human design. It's like 88 days prior to the birth. So I
Okay.
pull a birth chart as if we were born today,
Yeah.
and I read that for the collective.
Okay.
So, anyways, that's where the numbers come from. I'm not sure
Fun.
if that, and that's how we go. So when I say we just came out of it, our horizontal reading just
Mhm.
came out, and we just moved. So the earth moved, therefore the wheel and the numbers moved.
Okay. So I see that as you're talking too.
Yeah.
When you had said, so we went into the constriction, like we were in this, now are we in this place? So I had written condensation, constriction is so funny. As I say constriction, I hear sciatica, like when you're constricted, you get that pain radiating down the legs from the back. So the support, it feels like lack of support. It feels like a potential flare up, that it's like, where is this energy going? I don't know what to do with it. But I also was seeing all of these angles that you were talking about because you said it's coming from the sun. And I had written down that the bandwidth, I drew it coming out of the sun, okay, as relevant. And I had written that we're warming up to this frequency. And we're being divided into many different
Mm.
spectrum banks. And I put frequency time imposed memory banks. We'll come back to that. But What I was writing was these angles. So here's these different stick figures, and they're all looking at things from a different perspective and from a different angle. Yet that could be the same person, you know, in 3 different times of their life, right? But
Right.
also they're all a 90-degree angle, but it depends
Yeah.
on the location in which they're viewing it, which is the map, which is the mapping system, which is the wheel that you just showed, in addition to all of that.
So as you were here, as you were saying something about us all being divided into different perspectives, I was hearing, be not divided against yourselves. So it's like division, and it's like hold the perspectives without being divided against yourself. You know, the degrees of self, the varying degrees of self, the varying degrees of self perspective.
Uh-huh.
Um, and now I'm hearing like perspire, right? It's like sweat. It's like the beads of sweat
Perspiration,
again, the perspiration again, the condensation again. So obviously there's
condensation.
something that we need to go deeper into. The concentration. Oh God, no.
I know. I know. Oh,
Concentration camps,
I
okay?
know. Back to, so
So
just say it.
concentration camps, but then this is the gesture again. It's like, don't be afraid to speak plainly. Say it, follow the flow, because as soon as I hear concentration and I heard concentration camps, I would go into constriction, which would stop the flow. So it's like hold the heart open, see the roots and the canopy. So you see concentration camps. Now you can go camps of concentration, camps of condensation, camps of
Creation, co-creation. When you say condensation, I'm hearing again back to deeper sensations. So it is our perspective, what we hear,
yeah, it
what we
is.
see.
When we're in flow like this, it will show us where our fear is. So is my fear in talking about that, or is my fear in talking about that publicly and having someone misunderstand
Ooh,
where
goosebumps.
I'm
So there is this, we could go into so many places there. I just went pop. So then as I say pop, I think of pop, P-O-P, like where am I directing that flow of energy? And it comes back to smoke signals. So you said earlier intent. I don't remember where well, I think of intense concentration camp intense. So listen, one perspective, I'm just going to put it out there. There are those that are in fear that are going to hear that and go, oh, well, what you're seeing is this. And taking that directive into something that they're interpreting, and this is no judgment.
That's a concentration camp. That's a camp of concentration. That's a
Where
camp
that concentration is of fear.
that's
Even if we're,
that's condensing. That's compressing. That's condensing itself. So it's convincing itself, it's condensification.
Mm-hmm. Condensification can cause intensification in the lower densities, and it can create coagulation, and it can create constriction. Now, that's not to say we all don't experience that from time to time.
So fast. It's so fast, like what we're doing right now. I could tell that you and I could do this a lot faster.
I know.
But like telepathically, right?
Yeah.
It's just so, we're gonna have to read the definition of condensation.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you had it up. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so I got it up. So number 1, water which collects as droplets on a cold surface. Whenever I hear surface, I also hear service.
Me too.
Service. It comes to service. Okay. Mm-hmm. Water which collects as droplets on a cold surface when humid air is in contact with it. When humid air is in contact with it. So if I was really going to follow the trail, I would go into humid, I would go to humorous, I would go to right.
Yeah.
But
back to the gesture.
So number 2, the conversion of vapor or gas to a liquid. Ooh, the conversion of a vapor or gas to a liquid.
Ooh.
That makes me think of gas, nebula, the forming of stars,
the bubbles,
life, and even like gas pain.
Yeah, this is where we go with this, guys. We go to everywhere.
flow, right? When our body's not in flow, gas pains. Sorry. So a reaction, and another one, a reaction in which two molecules combine, right? Combine, the flowering, or not. The
I'm
flower,
hearing combine or bust.
the flower or the misflower or the misflower. A reaction in which two molecules combine to form a larger molecule, producing a small molecule such as H2O as a byproduct.
Okay.
As a byproduct, right? So that makes you think of something coming in and then creating bifurcation, byproducts.
Sorry, guys, I haven't been looking at comments. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Holly. We're just in flow. I'm having trouble like going back and forth, so I'm just going to focus for a minute. It's like,
after this, we'll stop and we'll look at comments.
Okay.
But like, you and I are two molecules that are coming together to form a larger molecule. This is what we do, double bubble. And then producing a small molecule such as H2O as a byproduct. So we're constantly producing H2O together as a byproduct. For example, we're producing these branches that we branch out on.
I see it as spores from the mycelium mushroom network.
The fusion of two or more images or ideas into a single composite or new image as a primary process in unconscious thought exemplified in dreams.
Oh my gosh. So guess what the card I pulled this morning was lizard, which means dream time. Okay. Also the card that I pulled, this is before Kandice and I got on, and I said, oh, maybe I'll do the cards at the end. The other card you'd mentioned, again, I brought up intent because the other one I pulled up was smoke signals, intent, which is a whole other can of worms. And I'm sure there's going to be more that comes up, and I'm not going to tell you the other cards that I pulled, but I'm seeing like this spread, right? So when you're talking about these molecules, all this molecule stuff, what movie is that from? What's all this? Yeah, moly. So when you're when you're talking about all of this, oh boy. Earlier I had been looking up. Oops, I just pulled up. So earlier I'll try to do a share screen because this is kind of a kick. It's kind of funny. So I'm just going to hit share screen really quickly. And I didn't know you were going to go into the whole bonding of the molecules or we didn't know where we were going to go. But I want to come back to and we'll keep it simple at the end. We'll kind of tie this all in together and say, what does this all mean? Which I think some people are probably following like, oh, I get it. I see where you're going with this. I see how you're doing this. But ultimately, we have an end point here. But so essentially this, I'm going to hit share screen real quick. So hopefully this will work. My share. All right. So I'm bringing this into, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So let me go back to where it came from. Let me go back to the beginning, and I might have a little bit of a delay here. But what happened was I was looking at conjugated system. Oops. I might have to pause this because it might freeze us out. Are we okay so far?
Good.
Okay. So if you look at this conjugated system, it's a system of connected p orbitals with delocalized electrons. Okay. So this whole thing just threw me into a spin. It's the overlap, we're talking about the bubbles, of one p orbital with another across an adjacent bond. Okay. Now, where my eyes went to was these pi bonds. So when I went into pi bonds, which of course I felt, you know, we're all piece of the pie. There's a whole circle that we're part of, which brought me into this. It says they're covalent chemical bonds, all right? And it talks about the nodal plane. Oh, where did I find the whales? But look at, so I'm seeing this because I had written, you said constriction. And I said, well, I'm hearing boa constrictor. So I was seeing this as a bow. Okay, and this is a bow. across a plane. So it
Wow.
goes from this into this separation, but it's actually forming a bond by these two bows that are identical to each other. And I'm guided to look up orbital symmetry, which if you look at the cross connection of orbital symmetry, that takes me into basically our geometry that we're creating as a collective, whether we see it or not. But then if
Yes.
I go back into these, I went into triple bonds, which I think is what we're forming right now. Do you see the 3 triangles and I'm getting like
Oh
6
my word.
bonding electrons, 2 atoms involved. Okay. Which then get excited. I don't know if you can see this particular picture. I'm going to see if I can bring it bigger. Do you see this?
Yes.
That to me was so symbolic because it's a toroidal donut with a poof coming out this end and a poof coming out this end. But do you see what it's forming into? I just am like looking at this, mind blown. Of course, these are all my synchronicities. And it says right here, covalent chemical bonds, an orbital overlaps with 2 lobes, and the overlap occurs laterally. So it occurs in the same plane, right,
Yeah.
from one perspective. Each of these atomic orbitals has an electron density of 0, okay, at a shared nodal plane. Do you remember that I just posted something about the nodes and talking about the different wave points? I don't remember if anybody remembers this, but if you look at this picture of this, I had said some of us are on this hill and we can't see that there's another connection point because this hill is constantly moving. We're up, we're down, we're riding this plane. And I could go into so many different connections here, but it talks about quantum mechanics. From the perspective of quantum mechanics, this bond's weakness is explained by significantly less overlap due to their parallel orientation. And I could go into so many different areas here, but I'm going to kind of, when I went into boa constrictor, because I had drawn, well, I'll show you in just a minute. I drawn the aurora borealis after you, or aurora, how do you pronounce it? Aurora borealis, borealis.
Aurora borealis. Yeah, you got it.
And then it talks about, you're talking about the bifurcation, right? We're talking about this right? So we're talking about constriction and the binomial name. So Kandice had just posted this morning about whales and the orca. So when I go on to binomial name, which is where my eyes were drawn to, it talks about binomial nomenclature is a formal system of naming species of living things by giving each name composed of 2 parts.
Oh, wow.
Both can be based on words from other languages. Now, this could take us into a completely different spin, which we won't go there just yet. But let's play with that just for a second because everything is connected. So it talks about the name of the killer whale, but it's also the Orcinus, orca, which are the O's. I'm seeing the O, right? And it basically talks about a generic name. I mean, it goes into so many different realms, and I'm going to kind of stop share right now. Are you following what I'm putting down here?
Wow. Yep.
So if we go back into all of this, basically, there's more than meets the eyes. If we're being invited to see with all of our parts, all of our moving pieces, and recognize that the intent and the smoke signals that we're putting out is rippling out into the field, right? And it's creating bonds. And we're either going to bond with what it is that we are thinking about the most and we don't necessarily want to bond with. We're either going to continue to go in that direction, or we can ping back into the other direction. But from my guidance team, it's like see all directions, see it all as connected. So go ahead. I just went off onto that crazy tangent. But.
Well, I would like, there's so many, like, there's so much that you said, and there's so many directions that we can go with that. So I'm not going to touch any of it. And I'm going to go in a different direction. No, that's hilarious. No, it's all connected. And before I was flowing and I was starting to wake up, I was really obsessed with bonds, covalent bonds and stronger bonds. And I feel like when you came along into my sphere, that's kind of what happened. There was some sort of a bonding, and but it's like our chemical makeup. There's something about the chemistry of our energetic fields and how we're oriented
Mhm.
that just had us come together. And
The Oreo-ented?
Oreo orientation. So I wanted to just say, I wanted to go into the mole, which is also measurement. It's also chemistry.
Mhm.
And it's also this animal that goes underground. It doesn't use its eyes. It uses the feeling of everything, and it goes under. It creates pathways underneath where nobody's looking,
Yeah,
essentially, very deep. And that's
yeah.
kind of what we do. So I wanted to let everybody in on the inside joke of Moly Moly, because that was a flow that you and I were going into the mole. And there's also a very beautiful Native American, I don't know if it's Sioux or like traditional mythology about the mole,
Yeah.
about the wisdom of the mole. And I think creator had figured out that humans were a bit of a devious creation, and they were like, let's put the truth of all existence inside themselves. The mole said this, put it inside themselves because they'll never look there. Like,
Yeah.
go where
It's the
I
last place they'll look.
look, put it inside themselves. They'll have to go inside themselves to find whatever that
Keep
was. So
going.
there's that whole, that if you want to go look up that story, it's really beautiful. And
I'm going to show the app that I use that has it on there. So keep going while you're
so
chatting.
the mole is also a unit of measurement. So utility of moles. The mole is useful in chemistry because it allows different substances to be measured in a comparable way.
Yeah.
Using the same number of moles of two substances, both amounts have the same number of molecules or atoms. The mole makes it easier to interpret chemical equation in practical terms, which also makes me think of the orca and where you were going with that binomial, bringing two names together, bringing two
Mhm.
things together. So I know it might sound really abstract, all these different things that we're talking about, but we're talking about combining, we're talking about columbining, we're talking about five around one, or
Yeah.
many pieces around one, and unification systems, and not being divided by all of these divisions that we are, but finding the unification within everything to speak a universal language. And that brings us back into universal love.
Yeah.
Universal love is the language that everyone understands without even really necessarily needing to speak a common tongue. It's something that when you touch down on it, when you open and you don't constrict, you accept and you expand into it, you are now in a common currency and a common courtesy.
Yeah.
And the orca, how it came into my field is I had a dream where I was swimming with orcas. My love for them, this magnetic pull, which is the magnetic attraction, which is the bonds coming together, the
Yeah.
magnetic pull to them was stronger than my fear for them. I was very aware that their power could overpower me, but my love overpowered my fear of my awareness of that, which drew me in to going into the ocean and having them come and embrace me. And it was it was a cross species, cross connection. And there
Yeah.
was like I was kissing their faces, and the amount of love that I experienced in that dream really deeply impacted me. And it was right on the precipice of us moving into Aries, moving into the gene key 25. And I woke up that morning and I pulled open the chart, and it was like universal love. And I was like,
Yeah.
I was just embraced by that. But then I also see the orca as the black and the white coming together,
Me
the
too.
dark and the light, the up and the
Mhm.
down in one being,
Yeah.
coming as a messenger in the ocean of consciousness, in the ocean of universal love, in the field that we all share, swimming in the
Mhm.
field, and then sharing that message that was beyond words. There was no words, but there was rich energetic context between two things that don't normally go together.
Um, yeah, I just went into 10 different places. First, I wanted to show the mole introspection. Here's the mole, right? That's what it represents, going within, right? And this is spirit cards, or it's called spirit animals, and it talks about in ancient times the creator gathered all of creation and said, I want to hide something from the humans until they are ready for it. As a part of me, they create their own reality. Many creatures suggested places to hide this knowledge, but none of them were really satisfactory as humans wouldn't finally explore them. Finally, Grandmother Mole, who lives within the heart of Mother Earth and sees with her spiritual eyes rather than her physical eyes, spoke up. Why don't we hide it inside the humans? That is the last place they will look for it. The creator laughed and replied, in an instant it is done. So it's talking about don't necessarily look for solutions all around you as your answers are within you. And it is one of the most powerful messages, I think, of all of these cards. And it's as I was reading that, I was coming back to the jester that you spoke about earlier, and the joker, and and Hayoka, and how many of the native teachings, it was back to what you said in the beginning, the clown chakra. And we had talked about this last week, I think, the clown chakra. It's like, it's a joke. So you have finding laughter, speaking. Yeah. And a lot of the teachers of our ancient shamans and medicine men and women would teach through laughing, like it's being a jester, being a clown, and tricking us like coyote. Like we can use all of this as medicine, recognizing how do we see it all as not just a teaching tool, but also a part of us, right? Sorry, I
was hearing trick or treat.
Oh, that's ironic. This messages, by the way, sidebar, synchronistically, yeah. These, what I wrote this morning before we popped on, I recorded on Halloween.
Ooh.
So I record all this stuff and write all this stuff, and you do this too, I think. So Kandice and I will write stuff down, and then sometimes we're guided to pull up posts from like a year ago, or sometimes, and I think even like Holly, who was tuning in, she's like, I was guided to look at this from like 3 years ago. So Holly, so I just pulled up this recording this morning and I hit play, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for the one I recorded yesterday for today. And I couldn't find it because I put the file someplace else. And so the only thing that was available to me was the one from Halloween. Trick or treat.
Perfect. There was a comment in the chat about unicorns coming through with the message, holding space for our fun.
Yeah, how funny.
Very energy in the conversation. And I wanted to look up, because when she said unicorn, I was hearing one cornucopia. So a symbol of plenty consisting of a goat's horn overflowing with flowers, fruit, and corn, which, you know, the flower, the jester hat, an ornamental container shaped like a goat's horn.
Okay, I just went galactic there. So as you're saying that, I literally saw the cornucopia in space, and I was seeing that horn as a tube, and I literally saw it as a wormhole.
Wow. And the fairy energy, like, that just reminded me of a lot of people that have, if I ever get readings, or if people try to look at my energy field and they try to see more of who and what I am, a lot of people see me as some sort of like a galactic fairy, and they'll see me like giggling around and like laughing and like like moving around. Yeah. That's totally me. So it's not
just so funny.
There's a lot of fairy energy, and I feel like there's I was really actually I had a little love affair moment with fairies when I was in my teens. You know, I just was really drawn to that, and I feel like there is something more to that story that is sort of cosmic, galactic,
and you think relevant. So it's interesting that you're bringing that up, because one of the messages that comes through, I've done sessions with people, and it's funny, is because I think when I first met you, that's what I saw you as. It's so hilarious. Yeah. So this is it's always fun when you get multiple readings from people and they're like, yeah, I see you as this, and you're like, yeah, I know. a message that was coming through the other day, and I don't know, I think that I'm tying this into some synchronicities that we've had. Actually, I've worked Holly, some synchronicities that Holly's had, and also some other beautiful star seeds I've worked with recently. And some of it is that that's coming online for a lot of people because there is this need to connect deeper with Earth. And now we just took it into a completely different column, if you will. Yet it all comes back to the same tree, right? So there is this energy coming up from the earth right now that if you tune in, the other day I was feeling chaos. I was feeling the wild, wild west. I was feeling emotional. I was feeling like I was having difficulty stabilizing. Like we talked about in the beginning of this, all of the stuff, this zip file, you guys, it's a lot. And when we try to unpack it all at once, sometimes it can be very overwhelming and it can be very destabilizing. And this all comes back into those covalent bonds. But anyways, so it's coming back into that 0 point. And the way that we do that, I just stuck my feet on the ground and was like, I've got to get grounded. And as soon as I did that, I felt this amazing energy traveling up from the earth, but it didn't feel like it was coming from anywhere but outside of or inside of me at the same time. It's like, and I connect to this beautiful, you had mentioned aquiel or, and the flower earlier, the columbine flower. I call it acquiescence, aquiel. It's, oh, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting emotional. It's this I'm not even sure how to pronounce it, of energy that literally comes up. It looks like water. It looks like threads. It's soft yet flowy at the same time, mixed in with the aurora colors. But anyways, so as soon as I tuned in that, it took 5 minutes. And all of a sudden I was like, how I felt so much more, I felt this immense love and appreciation. And I'm bringing this back into the fairies because we have a tendency sometimes to compartmentalize these elementals. You know, we've got the unicorns, we've got the fairies, we've got the moles, we've got all of these collectives. And they're all part of the same source, but they all have different messages to bring through at different times too. So it's fun to play with that and recognize that we're connected to this realm and it's within us. And sometimes these elementals have been ignored for a really long time. So some of us embody that energy a little more easily than others, I think. But I went off into that tangent. Please, Kandice, carry on.
Well, when you were speaking, I think you said recognize or something, and as soon as you said that, the song "We Are Family," so like the elements, like recognizing we are family, we are literally part of the family tree, and we're part of you could say their chemical makeup, or they're part of our chemical makeup. It's the chemistry. It's the chemistry. And who is the chemist? Who is the ultimate architect and chemist? There's one. So it's the chemist's tree. We're part of that family tree.
Yeah. I was seeing Andara crystals. If the whole planet tuned into this channel, Gaia might light up. Ooh, I want to play with that a little bit. Yeah. And on the flip side, I would say that's absolutely. But on the flip side, I also feel that Gaia already is lit up, right? Because we are tuning in. A lot of us are tuning into this channel.
Recognizing that
so I love that. It goes both ways.
Flip flow that we can go into that is accessible right now, that is that lit up, that is that elemental. You know, we're in realms within realms within realms here, and realms within realms. I'm like reels within reels, like film reels. Like I'm seeing reels over reels over reels of film that you can go and send your light into and see an entirely new pictures within pictures that are accessible here now, that we can tap into, and they're all interwoven, they're all overlaid pictures. And then I also want to randomly just give a shout out to sylphs. Sylphs are an air fairy or an air spirit, and that I have had such a deep interconnected experience with the sylph energy ever since I can remember. Ever since I started looking up in the sky, I started seeing beings forming in the clouds, and I thought, you know, this is just my imagination, but they'd be everywhere no matter where I went. And it's not, I don't know if it's because of my chemistry, my that I wasn't aware of, but you know, there are certain filters or channels that we have access to,
Mhm.
uniquely to our own arrangement that we've come in here with,
Mhm.
and equipment that we've come in here with. And I can't even pretend to know the hows or whys of it all. But
Yeah.
for whatever reason, you know, I have, and you as well, Carrie, like I have hundreds of pictures of these cloud formations that are energetic. I want to say like ambassadors or representatives of a collective or a frequency. I
Mhm.
have the most detailed pictures of dragons and sky dancers, something that I just, the name came up. I'm like, what is that? It looks like like ballerina legs in the sky. I call them sky dancers. And I,
Yeah.
multiple pictures, they look like air fairies that with
Yeah.
crossed little ballerina toes, and they have wings. And so, you know, I've seen these air fairies and I've seen these dragons that just present in the most extraordinary way in front of me. And I'm just like thinking that this is the most magical thing. And I'm looking around, looking at other people, and nobody's looking. And I'm just like, what is this that people don't think that that's magical? And I've even been with people and I've been like, look at this, look at this. Do you see this? And they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm like, like,
What? How are you?
guys.
I see that, Candice. I see that across the board. Like, that's so symbolic of like, why aren't you seeing this? We could go into so many places with that too. But I love the fact that you're bringing up that collective in general, because that was one of the things we started vibing off in the first place. Like, we would be posting stuff and we'd be seeing these things, and it's like, I see, I mean, I see it too. The dragons are huge. It's for me as well. And that for me, my experience with the fairies, of course, I love the clouds and the air. I see the little the spheres all the time. I see them as blue, sparkles or blue, little blue. We could call
Orbs.
them little spaceships, little blue orbs, little miniature spaceships, but also in through all things. Sometimes for me, I'll feel the elements literally in the wind. I'll just
Mhm.
be sitting there and I'll connect with the earth, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's no wind, and there's just this light wind that comes through, and it gets like underneath my hair, and I'm just like, okay, I feel you. And so I want to get a little in, like, utilize this. Like, if you're watching this or tuning into this later and this is something that you'd like to tune into, looking at the acknowledgement. It's all about
Oh,
acknowledgement.
I got real big chills there. Real big chills.
So we're getting this information, you guys. We're getting this connection. The elementals and Mother Earth wants strongly to connect with us. And we could go into another hour-long video on this, because what's happening is we're so tuned into technology these days that
Yeah.
many people have lost their ability. They haven't, but they don't remember how. Therefore, they're not tuning into or acknowledging their connection to Earth. And it's the Earth frequencies, it's the resonances and vibrations. And it literally takes us tuning out from technology for 5 to 10 minutes throughout the day in however we need to. And all of this will come through. We might then look up and see a cloud that we didn't notice before forming over us that wants to give us a sign. We might, I'm getting goosebumps. It's the magic and the mundane. And for me, I actually will lay on the grass sometimes and lay face down. And I've actually kind of fallen into the ground energetically and seen all the elementals that are underneath the grass, that are in the inner earth. It's so they're all around us. They're below us. They're above us. They're in the water. And so finding our own connection to what you were talking about earlier, Candice, within us. So you might be drawn to the silts, right? Other people may be drawn more to the dragons. It doesn't matter. Acknowledging and playing.
Yeah. Acknowledgement, acceptance, allowance, um, is like invitation. It's permission, it's invitation, it's
Yeah.
opening. So that goes back into the moving from constriction to acceptance to universal love, which is the universal language of life.
Yes.
So, you know, finding that acceptance, that allowance, that opening in every opportunity that we can, so that we can access that universal language of love. And that's the constant communion, which is communication and union with all that is. And I just have to go to the washroom, so I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll just play with the little flow right now and some cards. I think we've got about 15 more minutes before we'll probably have to sign out. Maybe that's about it. So I just want to kind of play for a moment as Kandice was talking about this. I'll just look at a couple comments too. Hi, Holly, Faith, and what you're experiencing with the beings. I'm painting a dragon. Patricia, that's hilarious. Synchronicity. Oh my goodness, so much synchronicity. Yes, Akishi. So I hope I'm saying that right. I love that name, by the way. So some of the things that I tune in with this is we can just tune in. For me, it's acknowledge, recognize, integrate, accept, allow, whatever words resonate with you guys. For me, it has to start with acknowledging that it's happening, so that therefore I can receive it more openly without the constriction that we're talking about. And you guys, it can be in anything, but I feel that the fairy and the elemental things have come up because we've gone from water to air, right? But also it's so important. Earth holds all of these elements. So ultimately it always comes back to the heart of the mother of Earth, of our body, that also holds all of these elements, right? We have to breathe the air in to expand our lungs. We have to drink water to share and provide sustenance. We are crystal, walking pieces of crystal in bones and platelets and blood, and we hold within us our own kingdom that's connected to the earth kingdom, that's connected to all of the elementals. Now we're talking about dragons and fairies and all of this, which sounds woo-woo, but let's go back to the building blocks of matter if we're going to go science and talk about the platonic solids and talk about that which we are solidifying within our own walking chemistry. So we could say this is airy fairy, but in reality, the fairies don't have to look like beautiful elemental beings. They can look like an element.
Yes.
A hydrogen bond.
Yeah. Ooh. So I was like feeling and hearing the word elementary and LM entry, like entry, the entry point, these entry points of the elements.
So it's an element. So just going into that flow, I'm hearing elementary, dear Watson, turning on the light bulb, Watson, wattage. So I'll just kind of tune into that just a little bit because, we just have to go into like a little word flow maybe at some point and record that, because I could go off into such a tangent right now. So I want to come back because we're going to have to end in like 10, 15 minutes, I think. But essentially I'll just pull this back into what we had been talking about earlier, was that omnipresent love, the omni, right? The black and white, the yin and yang, the zen, the 0 point. Our own tree. I see the tree as being the snake in the center of the yin and yang. I see that as the kundalini. I see that as this, snakes have been coming up a lot this week for us as well. But you had been talking about constriction as being constricts the flow of abundance, right? The flow then gets stuck. And I was hearing, when you said flow is stuck in abundance, I was hearing cash and casualty. So it turns into, we lose that flow, we lose that energy. And so the more we can be aware of what we're tuning into, that wants to tune in with us, to tune together in this tuning fork, which brings me back to the tree with all the forks and the magnets that we talked about last time, that we drew, or the time before last. Essentially, what are we tuning into? That's that sound, that tuning fork that's vibrating and pinging back to us. So It's all about the heart. And we talked earlier about connecting back into the earth. So that those energies and frequencies that are tuning into us, the bubbles that we're connected to. Two. Sorry.
I love that you just like went like this, like this goal post or like this tuning fork. It reminds me of the old rabbit ears off the television. Like,
Yeah. The antennae. Oh, of course. So the funny thing is the other card that I pulled this morning is rabbit.
Ears. Ooh, which is like the three hairs, you know, coming together. And when two or more gather, you know, your signal is amplified, which is like, I don't know why I want to just keep putting my arms up now.
Right, pulling all that energy in. So the amplification, I think we could kind of roll it back in. So with everything that we talked about and the rabbit, because I could take it into the cards that I pulled were, and I'll do another video on this separately maybe when I have time, or we can talk about this, but it's rabbit, and which led me into Black Panther, which is magic and power. And the other card I pulled was Shaman's Death, which is life and rebirth. So I'm seeing all of these symbols. We could use this and go into so many different directions. And then I asked about what that means for the collective, but I'll go into this in another video because I think we could go into so many different languages here. But the rabbit is also associated with fear. So we come, what?
Fear or fertility?
I love that.
Rabbit hole or rabbit hole?
Okay, so abundance and flow, or fear and constriction.
Yeah.
And what do snakes and boa constrictors eat?
Right.
So are we going to feel into our flow and our freedom, or are we going to feel constricted by not feeling connected? And you bring it back to the sense of self, right? I don't know, given if you said this in the first part of the last video or this video, because we kind of had some technical difficulties, but as usual. But are we going to feel into this? And it's that snake eating its own tail, which is the same as the rabbit and the three hairs.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different.
Wow. Do we want to do some like toning language sounds?
I think we'll end on that note. Yeah. I think that could be really fun. All right, I'll let you start though. So we're gonna do, I think we'll end on this note because I think we've got about maybe 10 more minutes. I'm happy we got this much time. So we can end a little bit, maybe some light language or some inflow stuff that comes through for the next 10 minutes or so. And some rabbit, the life force of the earth, the whole. Faith is what, yes. Sherlock, Patricia, she says Sherlock Holmes. We said elementary, dear Watson. Sherlock Holmes, my hero. I hear, I'm hearing Shamrock and the three-leaf clover, and I'm hearing Watson as far as the wattage on the light bulbs. And then I'm hearing Crimson Clover, and then I'm seeing 3 rabbits again, so I'll let you start ripping.
And that brings me to Angkor Wat.
Yeah.
Angkor Wat. That was a huge flow.
Yeah. And what are we anchoring in to increase our wattage?
Mm-hmm. So elementary. So L is, I was looking at the word elementary, or L. I was looking at L, M, entry, and L, oh my gosh.
I just went into LMNOP alphabet, moving up in succession. In numerical sequencing, in letter arrangement.
The word L means God Most High.
Elementary, dear Watson.
M means a unit of 12. So God Most High, a unit of 12, the 12 disciples. And entry is entry, like to come or to go. So the train, God, so L also means something to do with the train. So it's like,
I just drew a tunnel.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh my gosh. So the tunnel could be tunnel vision, or it can be the pathway, the tune L, the tune of the L, the tune of the God of the Most High. Um, so L, an elevated railroad or section of railroad, a train running on an elevated railroad. The L rumbled by. So the L, wow.
Hearing, let's get ready to rumble.
So when we were talking about fairies, I was feeling a lot of like fairy like sounds that wanted to come through. So that's,
Let it rip.
in my little vortex here.
I love it. I love it. It's fun. How could you not laugh and do that? You guys, by the way, Candice is not the only one that does this.
And
A
I've
lot of,
never made those sounds before, so I'm just letting it rip.
I will say that Holly is tuning in. We're gonna do a double bubble with her someday soon. Well, she may not be here right now, but she does the fairy sounds a lot. And so
Through, because I've literally never done that before.
yeah. So thank you, Holly, for bringing in the fairy tribe. Yeah, she does them a lot. She connects with the elementals a lot. And then I was thinking of Katya. She's not watching, but I worked with someone in the last few months, and she was like, I go, bring through your sounds in a session, because she hadn't really shared them with anybody. And she brought them through, and I was like, yeah, keep it going. So you guys, this is a beautiful, beautiful example of just trusting, just being open, just being allowing it to flow, because some of these sounds and noises that we make are just one aspect of communication that we've never been taught in a linear conformity, that's never been able to conform into the patterns and frequencies that we were playing with before. But now we are able to open the gates, move out of the tunnel vision, allow this flood of frequencies from the elementals to come in. And also all beings who are part of our tribe. And we all hold these different access points. We all hold these different frequencies. We all hold these different tones and tonalities that it then help us to activate within each other the memories that we're already holding, I'm just in flow, that we're already tuning into, that we're already tapping into, that we're already co-creating with as in existence, as existential examples of the existential, the all, the mole, the moly, the all, right? That we are banding with, that we are part of the bandwidth, that we are communicating through and as flowing into. Yeah, I wish, didn't I? Keep going, Candice.
Oh, I'm just breathing. You go, sister.
Oh no, I was just seeing, I was just like, as I'm saying this, what I see, we'll say through my clairvoyance or whatever you want to call it, I literally see elementals and beings that are like poking their heads around the corner, like they're talking to us. They're speaking our language. Let's play. I'm getting goosebumps everywhere. And you guys, this is part of the magic, because if you're not open to this kind of stuff, then it's happening to a lot of people. I can sense it. I can feel it, that are like, wait a minute, I dreamed about this the other night. Oh my goodness, I watched a movie about fairies yesterday. Oh, I actually dreamed about a giant tree the other night. Oh, I've been feeling connected with the gnomes. You guys, it's playful and it's Hayoka and it's clown-like energy that we need most right now. And the thing about the elementals is they're airy and fun and take us out, but they're also very grounding, because they hold keys to fire, water, earth, air. It's not limited to just one. So we're inviting you to feel into the frequencies that we're sharing right now, that we're all tuning into right now, by us opening to this tunnel this wormhole, right?
This wormhole, this warm wholeness.
That's right.
Wa he kia ta ko hana chia chia ko hai hai ya ha wo hono wa ha ta e ikia ta hana e kia ju shu ho ko ha pa ha ya awa ana an ha wo ko hana chia eke kia ha ta ha ka ko ka na ha I ti hi di ha ta ha to ko ha shia ni ya kwa wa ye yo
Some of your sounds that get canceled out by the microphone, I think mine will too, but I'm gonna kind of let it go. We're gonna have to figure that out, but you'll have to let me know if you can hear at the end. But as you're doing this, you guys, what I see are letter codes. I kind of see things I see letter codes
yeah.
like literally floating out in different spirals and different shapes. And what I do is I feel into the signature frequency of the sound, but you don't even have to hear it to feel or see the resonance that is being shared and experienced in this playful way. Koea ni awa he, shtini ki ma ene ki ma e wa inini ki tiriria aku ne titia na ki e wa ene ki wushte ene ki a nini a ti awa ki ene ua e titi na ki a one tine uno e a ni ki a mo ene tia o ki ene a kone ene a kone a Ea hene o ate ni ki makoe ne pua e ne tine o koe ne ti moe na he wā ne ki ane hua pea ne ki ue it ine ne ki moko ne ri e ne ki tina no e ti wā e te ko ai a ne po ne e ti ne moko e ne o hae ma ai u ka e a o stea e ne a moko ne So as we speak these codes, as we sing these songs, as we allow these frequencies to form from our own form, as we allow ourselves to form these currencies through this connection, through this interweaving, through this architecture, as we allow ourselves to feel into the texture of the frequencies and the language, taking this into a conjecture, a conjunction, if you will, as we allow ourselves to redirect the flow and the frequencies, and we open ourselves to the flow and the currencies of the elemental frequencies and beings that are wishing to form with us through these geometries, through these waves, through these bandwidths, through these linkages. It allows us to link up with hyperdimensional frequencies. I just went to another dimension.
When you were saying hyperdimensional, I was like really feeling these hyperdimensionals, and they feel, some of that fairy energy like is really high dimensional, but it is a hyperdimensional energy. It is very high, very excited, so when you're bringing it through, it like makes you giggle and it makes you laugh, and it's not that you're uncomfortable, but there is this kind of like jolting in your body that you're is very playful, very bubbly as you're accessing it. Something that you said made me feel about wishing well and like throwing the wishing well, but like we're the wishing well, throwing it into your own well, throwing the well wishes within your own well.
My
welling
goodness.
up, if you will, if you will, if you will.
Yeah. So that wishing well, as soon as you said that, I had this vision of a penny dropping into the bottom of this perfectly blue, like almost like the bottom of the ocean, like inside of I have had these visions before of being inside of these places. Okay, this is relevant for right now. So I've had these visions of being inside of these bottoms of the ocean, inside of these tubes. And within these tubes are interdimensional spaces of existence. And I've literally saw this coin dropping down into that tube, visualizing our body as that coin, like when you go into meditation. But I'm also seeing this connection to that particular realm, if you will. And you can utilize that, what you just shared or what I just shared, as a tool to drop in interdimensionally, because you're utilizing the coin of the value of the copper of that element, or let's say silver or whatever you want to use it for, as a tool to drop into that space. And then just visualizing that water element all around you and being part of that. It's hard to explain necessarily in linear terms, but just utilizing everything as a tool. Sorry, hyperdimensionally threw me into, like, when I was seeing that, I was seeing hyperspace. I was seeing the space in between the space.
Yeah, hyperspace.
And as we go into that space, it brings us into a hypersensitivity, a hyperconductivity, a deeper realm of interconductivity, a deeper wattage, if you will, allowing us to anchor into these other realms of
Hyperbolic chamber, hyperbole, exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literally. So we're playing within the hyperbole, the hyperbolic chambers. So we're taking everything lightly. We're not taking it literally. We're taking it lightly. We're in the hyperspace between the meanings, between the words.
I just was guided to draw the question mark in an S and a dot, the yin and yang, the hyper, when you said hyperbole, the hyperbolic chamber, it's that connection point, connecting the dot to that space and then merging the two and being on that nodal line of the wave, connecting the dots. So essentially, yeah, go ahead.
So the hyperbolic chamber is a healing chamber, you know, it's a therapy. It's used as a treatment to help boost the body's natural healing process. Hyperbolic oxygen, it was used to treat decompression sickness. A hazard of scuba diving.
Anybody feel like they're coming up too quickly?
Right? Yeah, when you go on those deep dives, when you go in those rabbit holes.
You have to equalize.
Equalize, not to be taken too seriously, not to be condensed within, but to lighten the load.
Open the zip file, condensed information. So as you were saying that, boy, that took us into we could do this all day. I have 5 minutes.
It's the never-ending story. As we're going through the infinite halls of stored memory and stored energy, the infinite zip files of reality. It will never end.
It's always a question mark, because that's never ending. It's always connecting. It's always moving in that S to connect the dot. And as you were saying that, as far as I think it's important. So you said hyperbolic chamber for healing. When I do healing work, and we've talked about this, that's where I go. I go into a space, and literally it's a bow. It's a hyperbolic chamber. I literally see myself and whoever I'm working with inside of a chamber. And inside of that chamber, I am held within that capsule. And by my own cellular memory and my own timestamp and signature frequencies that I'm able to dock into, it then helps me to literally tune into what's available to us in that moment to assist in opening and healing. Healing isn't even the right word, but I think equalizing would be a better word, maybe even. Like, let's see where we're out of balance and we can find that equalization in order to bring things back into harmony and balance. And essentially, we each hold the capacity and ability to connect into these hyperbolic chambers within our own bodies, but beyond as well. And I'm seeing that wormhole connecting to these elementals. We have these elementals that want to reach through and help from one perspective. Us, as we bow out and we send out that echo, that boomerang, that signal. But the more, oh, I'm hearing again back into that lateral, once we come back into that unification, it helps us to activate and it gives us the ability to come into a stabilization so that we can better integrate, activate, open, understand, be aware of. Kushte emakuneawa hetishtiawak inehele at iniki. Let inikila ana huna lele kanahaya la aushtulene. Lenekili anatia la o na le nerehet ana. So I'm just kind of sitting in this space. I think we probably end on this note. I'm just holding this space of appreciation and gratitude for all of the beings that are with us, that are part of our connection to each other, to source, to earth. And I'm particularly sending out a massive love vibe to earth right now, through which all of these elemental beings are connected into. Earth is not what we think of her. She's a multidimensional being, as are we. And so when we connect into earth this way, we're connecting into the multidimensionality that she holds as well. It's not just limited to some 3D connection point. That's only one node on the map that is a multidimensional, infinite, undefinitive, multifaceted, right? As are we. So I'm connecting into all of that through gratitude and appreciation. Sending out that signal to source, through source, as source, through source, connected into, through this one source connection that we all have access to when we're in our hearts. Did you want to add anything to that, Kandice?
I feel a little bit speechless right now. The energy that we just tapped into just feels so beautiful and loving. Just want to sit and love in it.
Yeah. And that's something that we are always invited to do when we feel into this, and we recognize that it's there and we've dropped in. Give it a few minutes. You know, give it some time to percolate, because the more time you spend in that space, in awareness that you're in that space, the more that space becomes aware of you from one perspective.
Aware of you, of view. Mea mo moha moene me mea ni hinu bohat na ni kie te ka kutumo na mani. Chia tu moha ma na hai be. Kia ta bukwa na wahana ni. Chia tu bwa na man. Hiri da bopahara cha wahana na. Lia la na kwa la hana nia ba ta popara la ni. I chia ta ha dari ki tukutuho mo na ha mo na mi miam he ma hoa waha hana hai ki kia kau kwa na ha ta hai xia wa xia ha xia ma wa ni nia ka o kwa wahana shu Just many blessings to all life. So much love, so much love. Many blessings.
Thank you, Candice. That was beautiful. You guys, by the way, Candice has music that she's got a beautiful voice, and I think you've recorded some stuff. So check out Candice Co. You can always message her, right? They can message you. You've got some really cool recordings that she's done, and they're beautiful. So one of the things I'll end on that note is through this voice and through these energies, you're just expressing multiple versions of access points, right? And I think that's just something important for all of us. All of us can find our voice in our own way. It doesn't have to be through singing or sound. It can be through art or dance, or listening to someone else and then expressing through mathematics or color or whatever it might be. But it's important for us to be able to use our voice, no matter how we feel or think it sounds. Just let it come through. Because some of these primordial sounds are part of a gift to shift the frequency and the vibration. And we think they sound funny, like those, but trusting and getting out of judgment around that is always one of the things we talk about all the time. Just let it rip. R.I.P. Rest in peace.
Peace. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Candice. And thank you, everybody, for joining us, whoever joined us and whoever will be joining us in the future. In love and light, you guys. Namaste.